Have you ever felt like love controls you, like you're addicted to the rush of a new romance, the thrill of a text message, or the agony of a breakup? You might think it's just loneliness or passion, but what if this endless cycle is actually a cry from your soul? Carl Jung, the legendary psychologist, believed that love addiction isn't just about relationships. It's a spiritual emergency, a sign that something deep within you is calling for healing. We live in a world obsessed with love. Songs, movies, and social media glorify the intoxicating highs of romance. But when longing turns into obsession, when you can't function without someone's affection, or when you keep repeating the same painful patterns, it's not just heartache. It's a symptom of something far deeper. Carl Jung saw love addiction as more than psychological. He called it a spiritual crisis. The endless chase for the one, the fantasy of being completed by another person, these aren't just romantic desires. They're unconscious attempts to fill a void that can only be healed by reconnecting with your true self. In this video, we'll explore Jung's shocking perspective on love addiction and how breaking free requires not just better relationships, but a spiritual awakening. Love addiction is not simply a strong desire for romance. It's an all-consuming fixation, a compulsive need for the euphoria of new love, the reassurance of a partner's attention, or the drama of emotional highs and lows. At its core, it's an obsessive craving for external validation, a fear of abandonment so deep that solitude feels like annihilation. The love addict doesn't just want love, they need it like a drug, using relationships as a way to escape their own emptiness, their unresolved pain, or the terrifying silence of being alone with themselves. Unlike healthy affection, which is rooted in mutual respect and genuine connection, addictive love is possessive, desperate, and often self-destructive. It confuses intensity for intimacy, mistaking the chaos of emotional roller coasters for passion. Modern culture feeds this addiction in subtle yet pervasive ways. Social media turns romance into a performance. Curated dates, staged photos, the constant comparison to idealized relationships that exist only online. Dating apps gamify connection, encouraging endless swiping in search of the next dopamine hit, the next fleeting spark that might finally complete them. Serial relationships become a way to avoid the discomfort of self-reflection, jumping from one partner to another, not out of love, but out of fear of facing their own inner void. Even breakups are no longer clean endings. They're drawn-out cycles of texting, stalking, and rekindling, because the love addict would rather endure toxic attachment than sit with the raw, unmedicated ache of withdrawal. Carl Jung drew a sharp distinction between healthy love and its addictive counterfeit. He famously said, "Where love rules, there is no will to power," meaning true love is not about control, obsession, or filling a personal lack. Healthy love is an act of conscious choice, not compulsion. It doesn't demand another person's constant attention to feel whole. It doesn't use romance as a distraction from inner turmoil. The love addict, however, operates from a place of hunger, not wholeness. They project their unmet needs onto their partner, demanding they play the role of savior, healer, or mirror. In Jungian terms, this is the difference between relating to someone and using them, between seeing a partner as a full human being and reducing them to a symbol of what's missing within oneself. This distinction is crucial because love addiction isn't really about the other person at all. It's about the addict's unconscious attempt to outsource their self-worth to avoid the hard work of inner integration. They chase the intoxicating rush of infatuation because it temporarily numbs their spiritual loneliness. But like any addiction, the high never lasts. Each failed relationship, each cycle of obsession and heartbreak is a disguised cry from the soul. You are looking for love in all the wrong places because you haven't yet learned to find it within yourself. For Jung, love addiction was never merely a psychological pattern. It was a profound spiritual misdirection, a sign that the soul had lost its way. At the heart of this crisis lies the shadow, those disowned parts of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. The love addict, unaware of their own unmet needs and unresolved wounds, projects them outward onto romantic partners. They don't see the other person as they truly are. Instead, they assign them the role of savior, the one who will finally make them feel whole. This projection is a spiritual sleight of hand, an unconscious attempt to avoid the difficult work of self-confrontation. The addict believes they are searching for love, but in reality, they are running from themselves, seeking in another what they have not yet dared to face within. This dynamic becomes even more complex when viewed through the lens of the anima and animus, Jung's concepts of the inner feminine and masculine energies that reside within each person. The love addict, disconnected from these inner forces, becomes trapped in an endless chase for their idealized counterpart. A man obsessed with finding his muse, or a woman consumed by the fantasy of her knight in shining armor, is not truly seeking a partner. They are pursuing the lost fragments of their own psyche. The more they externalize these qualities, the more powerless they become, because no human being can ever fully embody the archetype they are being forced to carry. The spiritual tragedy here is that the love addict remains perpetually incomplete, always searching outside for what can only be reclaimed through inner reconciliation. Jung's most startling insight may be his observation that the gods have become diseases, meaning that our deepest spiritual longings, when repressed or misunderstood, manifest as psychological afflictions. The love addict's obsession is, at its core, a distorted form of worship. They unconsciously assign their partner divine attributes, expecting them to provide transcendence, salvation, or ultimate meaning. But no mortal can bear the weight of the divine. When the inevitable disillusionment comes, the addict either clings harder to the fantasy or moves on to a new object of devotion, never realizing that their craving was never truly about love. It was a misplaced yearning for the sacred. The gods have indeed become diseases, and the cure is not another relationship, but the recognition that the divine connection they seek can only be found by turning inward. Underneath all these mechanisms lies a vast spiritual emptiness, a void that was never meant to be filled by another person. The love addict uses romance as a substitute for the inner work of soul-making, the slow and often painful process of becoming conscious. Every time they reach for someone else to silence their existential loneliness, they bypass an opportunity for genuine growth. This is why love addiction is not just a relational issue, but a crisis of meaning, an attempt to anesthetize the soul's hunger with temporary fixes. Jung reminds us that the path to wholeness requires us to withdraw these projections, to cease demanding that human love perform miracles it was never meant to achieve. Until the addict learns to sit with their own emptiness, to confront the silence where the divine might speak, they will remain trapped in the cycle of spiritual starvation disguised as romantic longing. The real love story was never about finding the right person. It was about awakening to the truth that the love we sought outside was always within us, waiting to be recognized. The journey out of love addiction begins where all true healing must, in the difficult but necessary process of withdrawal and introspection. Like any addiction, the first step is recognizing the pattern and choosing to step away from the cycle of dependency. This withdrawal isn't merely about ending a relationship or taking a break from dating. It's about creating space to confront the emptiness that the addiction was masking. The love addict must face what they've been running from: the silence, the loneliness, the parts of themselves they've refused to acknowledge. This stage is often painful, as the temporary highs of romantic obsession are stripped away, leaving only raw, unfiltered reality. But within this discomfort lies the seed of transformation. Jung understood that real growth begins at the edge of our comfort zones, in those moments when we finally stop distracting ourselves and turn inward to ask the hard questions. Why does being alone feel so unbearable? What am I truly seeking in another that I've refused to cultivate within myself? This period of introspection is not passive suffering. It's an active excavation of the soul, a deliberate unmasking of the wounds that have been dictating unconscious behaviors. Once the withdrawal creates enough clarity, the real work of shadow integration can begin. The shadow, in Jungian terms, represents everything we've disowned within ourselves, our vulnerabilities, our unmet needs, our repressed desires. The love addict's pattern of projection is essentially a refusal to take responsibility for these exiled parts. Shadow work demands that we reclaim these projections, that we stop expecting partners to carry what belongs to us. If we've been seeking constant validation, we must learn to validate ourselves. If we've been addicted to the drama of unstable relationships, we must confront our own unconscious attraction to chaos. This isn't about self-blame, but about radical self-honesty. The shadow holds not just our weaknesses, but also our dormant strengths, the capacity for self-love, the resilience we didn't know we had, the creativity we've suppressed in our chase for external fulfillment. By integrating the shadow, we stop seeking completion in others and begin the sacred task of becoming whole on our own terms. This shift naturally leads to a new understanding of love itself, one that moves from possession to sacred connection. Jungian psychology doesn't dismiss romantic love. It elevates it by insisting that true love can only flourish between two people who have done their inner work. Possessive love says, "I need you to be my everything." Sacred love says, "I choose you, not because I'm empty, but because I'm full enough to share." This is the essence of individuation, the process by which we become more fully ourselves, capable of relating to others without losing ourselves in them. A love born out of wholeness doesn't demand, doesn't suffocate, doesn't use the other as a crutch. It recognizes the other as a separate, sovereign being, not as a character in our own psychological drama. This kind of love isn't based on fantasy, but on the courage to see and be seen in truth. It's a conscious choice, not a compulsion. The practical path to this transformation lies in reconnecting with the self through practices that Jung himself championed. Meditation creates the stillness necessary to observe our patterns without being ruled by them. Creative expression, whether through writing, art, or movement, becomes a way to dialogue with the unconscious, to give voice to what has been suppressed. Active imagination, a Jungian technique, allows us to engage directly with inner figures and archetypes, facilitating a deeper conversation between the conscious and unconscious mind. Even simple rituals, lighting a candle to mark a moment of self-reflection, keeping a journal of dreams and synchronicities, can become sacred acts of self-reclamation. These practices aren't escapes from reality, they're bridges back to the soul. Over time, what once felt like an unbearable emptiness becomes a fertile ground, a space where the self can finally take root and grow. The love addict who undertakes this journey doesn't just recover from an unhealthy pattern, they undergo nothing less than a spiritual rebirth, emerging not as someone who needs love to survive, but as someone who has discovered that love, in its truest form, was always within them, waiting to be uncovered. Love addiction, as we've seen, is far more than a relational struggle. It's a spiritual wake-up call. What masquerades as an insatiable hunger for another person is, at its core, a soul's cry for wholeness. Jung's wisdom reveals that our most painful patterns are not curses, but invitations, to stop searching for salvation in another and begin the sacred work of reclaiming the fragments of ourselves we've outsourced to others. The fantasy of being completed by love dissolves when we realize that true fulfillment was never meant to come from outside. It emerges when we turn inward with courage, compassion, and the willingness to meet ourselves exactly as we are. If this exploration has resonated with you, you're not alone. Many of us have wandered this labyrinth of longing, mistaking attachment for love, and obsession for passion. But awareness is the first step toward freedom. Have you recognized these patterns in your own life? Have you felt the pull of addictive love, or the liberation of discovering your own completeness? Share your experiences in the comments. This is how we break the illusion of isolation and remember that healing is a collective journey. And if you're ready to go deeper into Jung's transformative wisdom, subscribe for more insights that bridge psychology and the soul. We'll leave you with these words from Jung, a compass for the path ahead. Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. The clarity, the love, the wholeness you seek, It all begins with turning your gaze inward. The greatest love story isn't the one you've been waiting for, it's the one waiting to unfold within you.